Welcome to the UNSECURITY podcast. Each week, Evan and Brad give an inside look at current information security news, breaches, best practices, and other things you should know to improve your information security. Here are your hosts, FRSecure's Evan Francine and Brad Nye.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the UNSECURITY podcast. This is episode 42, and I'm Brad Nye, your host today. Joining me today is my good friend, Evan Francine. Good morning, Evan.
Good morning, Brad. How you doing?
Good. Been working this IR. It's been a little bit crazy. I had to put everything away because you saw where I was headed down the rabbit hole. So,
yeah, I mean, you were doing IR before the call here.
It's nuts. All right. So we have a jam-packed show this week. Hopefully you've seen the show notes on Evan's blog. We've got a lot to go through. So, yeah, we'll start with the crazy week, and we'll talk about Evan's week and figure out what's going on. I don't really know half the time at this point.
I know, it's crazy, man. So, Kristoff is joining us. We don't know when he's going to dial in. We just know that it's going to be probably sometime during the show, so we'll just transition when he gets here.
Yep.
Crazy week. Yeah. You have a different sort of crazy than I did this last week.
Yeah, the team has put in since I got to look up the date. Hold on.
Since like a week and a half.
15th, we've put in almost 180 hours on this IR. There's been on this one. There's been a good amount of training for some of the younger members of the team, which has been good, and that counts towards training time in that. But it's been a mess.
Yeah, it has. So we had a call on Saturday,
and
it's rare when we hold calls on Saturday, but it was with the chief operating officer of this company, the CIO, you, me, and Oscar, and I was just there to provide moral support. I mean, you guys had this more than in hand, but it got out of hand quick, this one.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of the awkward setup too, because we'd had our daily status call on Friday, and the CIO said, can we have a call tomorrow with just
leadership?
Ooh, how's that going to go? But, I think on the plus side, they are both very much wanting to do this correctly. The COO was, I would say he was upset that he thought he had a good program. I mean, this is a good example of, you can't just buy blinky lights and software and expect it to... Yeah,
they spent a ton of money on security and nothing was configured correctly.
No, I would assume not.
Yeah.
So the big update on this one, I'm assuming, with talking with Oscar, he found in a memory dump where the attackers were injecting malicious code into valid Windows services and executables. So I know it's overwhelming.
SVC host.
Yeah, SVC host. God. So, the memory dump he looked through was 16 gig, and he found that. That's pretty impressive.
That's a hell of a memory dump.
So keep in mind, this is something that we were seeing the connections out. We saw the malicious connections to malicious IPs, known malicious IPs. Carbon Black was finding those connections, but didn't find what was happening. Huntress didn't find what was happening. Bitdefender didn't find what was happening. We ran McAfee Stinger and Clam AV. Nothing had found that. It took that manual level of intervention.
Well, sometimes you have to go there.
It's insane.
I remember when this incident started, it was because the CIO of this organization is a friend and an acquaintance. And so he had this kind of initial thing, and he called me, and I was in the car, and I was like, oh, all right, I can only do so much triage in the car.
Right.
But to me, it seemed like it wasn't going to be.
We thought it was just a brute force.
Right, a brute force attack on some accounts. And we talked about this in the last podcast.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, whoops.
Yeah, so.
Turns out that essentially everything, right? 4 different.
So we found virus or Trojan on their domain controller. So
ouch.
What it looks like is not good.
Yeah, I'm trying to find your text.
Squibbly-doo.
Xperio, Squibbly-doo, extra pulsar,
Yeah, we're not sure on that one, but it's indicators of it. And that would explain why we didn't catch it on anything. There was, I don't have it open, but like, there was 3 or 4 other ones as well. So I found, it was interesting. The CIO yesterday, or CO or COO, was going to put something together to send out to the company and say, hey, here's what you should put on, your personal one. So everything that we found so far ran through VirusTotal and sent it over. And, none of them caught everything.
Right.
But there was a couple that caught the vast majority. But, it sounds like they want to do things the right way, and they thought they were.
Sure.
So.
Well, yeah, the CEO was pretty surprised when I was on the call on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't anything we have catch this?
Yeah.
Well, it's not just having the tool that matters. It's using the tool correctly.
Right.
And, we don't want to draw too many conclusions at this point yet because the investigation is still very much active. But it really appears like things weren't configured well.
There's a lot of
throughout the environment.
Basic hygiene from a security standpoint that wasn't followed, right? So I think we counted 50-something domain admins. The IT group is...
How many employees?
Around 350.
So 350. So...
But a lot of them were service accounts. Because...
Okay. Yeah.
Right. I think there was like 10 or 15 actual users in the domain admins, and then the rest were service accounts, which doesn't make it any better.
Right.
And the users were it was defended as, well, those aren't just regular users, those are IT people. Yep.
Right.
But it's their normal account with email and internet access. So, and we've definitely seen multiple instances of machines with infection where those accounts were logged in. So it's a mess. But yeah, credential harvesting.
And so you get to a point in an incident response, one like this anyway, where you get to a point where should we cut bait? I mean, should we just install a parallel environment, an air-gapped parallel environment that's clean?
Kind of where we've landed with them. And, hopefully we can give them, if we can lock down what exactly the signature is, we can give them a little bit more assurance to do this correctly instead of like rushing through it.
Right.
Because they're in a dirty environment, and they have been for who knows how long.
Right. The evidence doesn't go back far enough to support where this started.
No, not even close.
And so you speculate, what could have happened. And
oh, yeah. How long has this been? Yeah, I don't know.
When you installed it, maybe.
Right.
Well, an LDAP was open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, LDAP.
To the internet.
To the internet, unencrypted.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Did you hear that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that. So what? So for listeners, listeners, what sorts of advice do we have?
I think, some basic stuff. If you're
basics, it's always the basics, isn't it?
If you're going to have domain admin, have a separate account for that. Have a jump server set up that you would log into to manage all that stuff with, right? Mm-hmm. That privileged user account, no email, no internet access, right? You want to contain that, really restrict. I mean, that's the keys to the kingdom. Restrict access to it. Only what it needs to do. Service accounts, create a special group and set permissions as necessary, where necessary. Don't just say, well, it's easier this way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it certainly makes it work when you give. I mean, giving excessive privileges makes things work.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I mean,
and then you walk away. We're good.
So, Mike and I, one of our IR guys, worked together in the past, and we were talking. It's like it's kind of like what we came into.
What's Mike's nickname?
Pinky.
Pinky.
Yes.
All right. So you and Pinky.
Yes. Yeah, I'll call him that. It's weird too because I knew him as Pinky, and then sometimes it's Mike, and I never know what to call him. I'd rather call him Pinky. Okay.
I'm going to call him Pinky.
All right, works for me. So we'd worked together, and we were talking about very similar situation where we had both come in, and it was a hot mess.
Right.
Every person in IT was in domain admins. That was, including the CIO. When we told him, he was like, what? Why? What? It's just how they'd done it. Mm-hmm. Every help desk, every developer, everybody
Right.
They had file shares on their domain controller. They had, I looked at the event log and there was 3 minutes of logs in it.
Because it had rolled already?
It was default setting, so 20 meg or whatever. I think it's 20. But it was the primary PDC or primary domain controller for the site.
Right.
So everybody was authenticating against it, and it had the file server on it, which had, 250 or 300 gig of data.
Right.
So you had like 3 minutes of logs. I'm like, well, that's functionally useless. We don't have logs, period.
One of the things that was surprising on Saturday when, I was talking to the COO was just this false sense of security that he had.
Yeah.
He thought that all the money they'd spent on all these tools, all these blinky lights that, well, how could this possibly happen? I thought we were secure.
Yeah. Well, and then I think the call yesterday with the entire team, their team, and Oscar, Pinky, and I, that was a little awkward. You can tell maybe some of those IT staff are starting to get a little. They're definitely getting burned. Right? God, they've been working so hard, but
so not just burned out, but they're getting
burned. I think they're starting to see maybe some.
Like, oh crap, we should have taken care of this.
Yeah, like we said, hey, we're seeing this traffic from these hosts, and they didn't get us a list of all the hosts. They couldn't figure out some of them.
So they don't have any inventory,
well,
really.
They had some, but not a lot, right? And then, so are you telling me we can't validate and ensure that there's no data exfiltration? I said, no. Why don't we just shut it down? Like, cut the internet? Like, yes.
Yeah, please.
Like that, yes. But that's a business decision. Can you work without having internet access? Right. And then I kind of, right. And so it's like, we'll find it. So yeah, the CIO was like, all right, call me right after this because we need to put together a plan and get them what they need. Yeah.
Well, and I know this CIO personally. He's not happy. Somebody unfortunately will probably lose their job.
I hate to see that. You really do. However, there's just so much.
In IT, you have to at least. I know that information security and IT are different things, but in IT, you need to know the technology part of security, at least the basics, right. and like you started off with, the basics were missing here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This isn't rocket science. This is basics.
And it's not anything about, from what I've seen from that team that I've worked with, technically they're very capable, right? It's not that they're not skilled. They just weren't doing it. Right. And I think it's going to be a situation where somebody's going to.
When somebody has to answer for LDAP, open to the internet, unencrypted, that's one thing.
Why would you NAT your domain controller directly to the internet?
I know.
And not check the box for encrypting LDAP.
Well, I think some of it is ignorance. They just didn't know any better. Some of it is laziness.
Yeah. Well, and my, so the CIO is still really new there, mm-hmm. less than 6 months. Right. Which is never a fun position to come into and have this happen.
But the good thing is, when he came in, he was preaching security right off the bat.
Oh, absolutely.
He knew and recognized early on. So I think it just validates for him.
I would agree. But we don't know. I don't know which of these people were there when this was set up. Right. Did they come in and just manage status quo? I don't know that historical piece. Mm-hmm. If they had set it up this way, then good. Bye-bye.
Right. Well, somebody did.
But even coming in and not, I'm putting back my IT ops hat on, right? Yeah. Even coming in and not learning the environment, right? Like that was one of the first things I did before. We had found users that had 6-character passwords that never expire that had not changed them for 6, 7, 8, 10 years. Right. It's like, nope, everybody has to do this. Period. Oh, yeah.
You find
we got to do these things. But you got to learn the environment. You got to know this stuff if you're going to manage it.
That's the best thing for security. The better you know your environment, the better secure it's going to be. Because you know the back doors, you know the little holes, you know the things you've looked at and the things you haven't looked at. And so Yeah, get intimate with your IT environment.
And you can't fix everything, but you got to know, okay,
right.
This window is broken and there's a neon light arrow flashing at it.
Yeah.
I should probably watch that one.
Yeah. Back to the basics. So, advice is a lot of advice, in terms of cleanup, but then what about testing? I mean, did they ever test this environment? Were they doing external vulnerability scans? Did they know that LDAP was open? All these tools and, money that they spent on all these really cool, flashy, blinky lights.
It has AI.
Right, exactly. God, don't get me started on that. But does any of it work? And the only way you'll know for sure if any of it works is to test it.
Right.
You can't just plug it in and let it go.
And to be honest, I'm going to guess no. I don't know.
Well, how could they?
Right. There's no way that
unless they just ignored unless the test sucked, or they just ignored the test results altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say not recently.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're struggling for them to get us a list of their external IPs. They got it from their ISP. They didn't have anything internally that documented what was going on. Now they had some translations, and they were able to provide that. It's like piecemealed.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, the good thing is, and that was our recommendation, is continue down this path a little bit more, and then prepare yourself for rebuilding, building a brand new environment, air gapped from this dirty one.
Right. And I will say, I don't want to sound like I'm just trashing their team. Their team has been very responsive. They really have put in a lot of hours to try and help with this.
Well, yeah, when shit hits the fan.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a good thing for them, right? Like, I don't want to sound like I'm all super negative. It's frustrating from an IR perspective, right? They have all their logging was local.
Well, and where I get frustrated is we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. Our oversights, our mistakes, our lack of skill, our laziness. People get affected. Hey, is that Kristoff?
Good morning. Yes.
Kristoff is here. Well, Brad and I are here. Brad, take it away.
Yeah, we were just ranting about incident response and the basics of like not having 50 users and domain admins and not natting your domain controller to the internet with unencrypted LDAP.
Would you know better? See, we got to laugh at Kristoff. Started your Monday morning with a good laugh.
Yeah. I mean, did you see the 60 Minutes episode last night about Texas?
Oh,
no, I didn't see that.
I didn't. Tell us about it.
I mean, it was they started out with the 22 cities in Texas, and then they went through all the other cities. Unfortunately, the only thing that they didn't do while they have that captive audience is give any suggestions on how to improve. They really just talked about the problem. That's the problem with our industry. We just, hey, this is a problem, but don't suggest any recommendations on how to fix it.
Yeah.
Although I've seen some of the things they do, and maybe that's not the worst. We should get the right people giving those suggestions.
Yeah, when you listen to this episode, Kristoff, you'll hear about this incident response we're currently working on, and just the complete lack of basic hygiene here. But do you think it's time for us to revisit the call to action again?
I mean, the call to action is one thing. They'll bring the awareness from the citizen standpoint, but I don't think they even are aware what to do if made aware.
Right.
Yeah.
So we almost need an awareness campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. I know with, kind of my side of it, it just kind of fizzled. They said, okay, yeah, we'll make you kind of as advisor as they're moving forward. And I haven't heard anything.
Then they just sort of forget about it.
Just disappeared.
So raising the awareness, raising the priority level.
Yeah. They were doing some good steps, but nope, nothing. So,
So Kristoff, it's been a while since you've been, on our show. What have you been up to?
Well, today's my first day as a professor, teaching online at Bellevue University. And then outside of that, pretty much same old, same old.
Oh, just that.
Yeah.
So what will you be teaching?
This semester's course is Intro to Cyber Threats, Actors, and Security.
Oh, very cool.
Nice. So is this teaching gig in addition to your other job, or is this all full time now?
Yes.
Okay.
No, not full time, just teaching on the side. It's an online format, so it's mostly engaging the students with the material that's already prepped out, but I plan on adding additional relevant content and asking the hard questions.
Cool. That's very cool.
Are you nervous?
No, I do this all day on Twitter and LinkedIn, so.
There you go.
That's very true.
Now you have people that are seeking it out to learn, so that'll be good.
Yeah. So how's your podcast going?
Yeah, definitely. We're running a year. It's going good. I think sometimes I feel like we need more guests, but we're starting to hit different types of individuals. Now we're having like cyber sales folks, end of career transition, so folks that are in their 60s and 70s coming over to cybersecurity. So cool. Definitely that's what I love seeing, is just the diversity of guests that we're having now.
Cool. So for our listeners, tell us about your podcast. Tell us where to find it. Tell us what you guys are trying to do and what kind of the mission is.
The whole goal of the podcast is to have an interview, a conversation with someone who's been in the industry for less than 5 years, and they shared their personal journey. So rather than having someone that's been in the industry 20, 30 years preaching about what they did back in the day, hear it from someone fresh that just came into the industry, share what works, what doesn't work from their point of view. And then hopefully by having a diverse group of guests, they can have tips from each person that they can take into their own journey breaking into cybersecurity.
Okay. So are you trying to get more people into the industry, or help people get into the industry?
Both.
Okay, good.
That's good. Yeah.
And you mentioned, are you looking for guests that are, sort of new to the industry, less than 5 years?
Yeah, always looking for guests. Some months we'll find that we're booked out for a couple months, and then they'll dry up. So we're always looking for guests when they're available.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Because we have some people, I know we have some listeners of our podcast who are looking to break into the information security industry. I just got on our email, our podcast email, was a trucker who does a route from,
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
That's
from
cool.
St. Louis to Minneapolis, right? And so he listens to our podcast on the road, and he wants to get out of trucking and get into information security. I thought, awesome. So it's great that you're putting on this podcast. Where can people find it?
Well, we have a YouTube channel, Breaking into Cybersecurity. It is also on the podcast app from iTunes, and I think it picks up everywhere else because we host it on SoundCloud. So any of the podcast applications that go to SoundCloud to pick them up, they get it in their feeds as well.
Okay. So breaking into information security.
No, Breaking into Cybersecurity.
Breaking into cybersecurity. Okay. And then people can find it by going to, like, give somebody one place to go find it.
Yeah. If you go to YouTube, you'll have the recorded videos there. If you search it in the podcast app for those on the road, Breaking into Cybersecurity, it's there as well. And you can find it on my LinkedIn profile, and it's linked in my profile as well.
Awesome. So this, I'm thinking of this one person who wrote into our show about being the trucker on the road. what one piece of advice would you give somebody in a completely different industry? Would you just say, start off with, listening to your, podcasts like yours, and do you cover what resources they're going to need to learn?
Yeah, the guests typically will mention the resources that they've used in their journey. So the piece of advice that I would give is figure out what makes you passionate about this industry. So for the trucker, it could be the insecurities that he sees in the trucking industry and how that is a critical infrastructure for the United States, and how he, with his experience, can now help secure that industry. So he's taking transferable skills from his current role, adding information security to that, and then helping improve society as a whole.
I think that's a really good point is, because people a lot of time, why are you doing this? Well, I don't know, right? Because I hear a lot of buzzwords around it, but to what makes it you passionate about this? What is it? How do you relate? Yeah. I think that's a really good point, and will help people be better at it, right? I'm just doing it because, it's the next wave versus here's why I'm doing it.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, for people like you and me, and it's funny because you mentioned, 0 to 5 years experience or whatever, that disqualifies Brad and I, but Brad and I are both still, as passionate, I think, today as we were day one. It's the passion doesn't go away. If you find it, you'll latch on to it.
It's that, find your why, right?
Yeah.
You find that why, and everything else just falls into place.
For sure. So,
I think the passion never goes away, but I think what changes is how to get in. With this many years of experience, the approach that you will take is going to be different than someone breaking in for the first time. So the challenges that they will face, whether applying for 200 jobs or getting a long list of credentials on a job rec that they think that they need to meet, or all these skills that is listed for an entry-level individual, how to combat those challenges and advice from individuals that have done it, I think is what changes as time goes on.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the common, that you hear, what are some of the common challenges for people breaking into the industry? Is it just lack of experience?
Some of the things you'll see for entry-level roles, they'll call for 3 years of experience, which for someone trying to break in an entry-level role is really hard to get, because most of the times they're coming straight out of college, or they're coming from another industry like trucking, and they don't have that experience. Oftentimes you'll see a long list of certifications, even CISSP for entry-level roles, which is crazy because that requires at least 5 years worth of experience. Then you'll see a long list of technologies, must be experienced in this, must be experienced in that. And that's one of the reasons that we're hitting this talent shortage is employers are putting out these job recs that are very, very strict, and new candidates to the market are going, well, I can never meet that. And then they'll never apply. Whereas I think if they take a more strategic approach, like these are the skills and competencies that will make you successful, these are the types of technologies that you should be fairly competent in, and take that sort of approach, then you'll have a more diverse set of candidates that are applying for those roles.
I think that's something that we've identified, and that's why we hire for the person, those intangibles, like who they are, what they're
the things we can't teach you.
Yeah, because you can get exactly like you said, right? If they have a basic foundation, we can get security. We can teach them security,
right?
But it's finding the right personality to begin with that's more important.
Yeah, for sure. So is there an opportunity? So it sounds like there's a good opportunity to educate hiring managers as well. I mean, they need to write these recs better.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Definitely. And that's why I love the approach that our podcast is taking. There's myself, who has been a hiring manager, looking to develop talent, as well as my co-host, who's in recruiting, and we're spotting these trends all the time, and we're informing those on the hiring side and the recruiting side of what to do and what not to do. But we also have a lot of hiring managers that listen to the podcast for up and coming talent. So they'll hear someone and their passion, and then that will end up getting them a role as well.
Awesome. So the audience for your podcast is kind of diverse itself, like you're I think shooting for. You've got the candidates who are people who are looking to break into information security or cybersecurity, and then you're also catering towards those hiring managers to help them find these right people, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's about changing that mindset of opening up the horizons and looking for that more diverse group, because I think with of talent that we have, we can't keep up with the ever-evolving cyber threats that are out there.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you think about it, you know, it's pretty obvious that the vast majority of people don't understand or just don't get cybersecurity. And then you have those people writing job recs or interviewing, you know, kind of that initial HR interview where they're interviewing for something they don't understand.
Right.
A
lot of times they're Googling, I was just talking to a company that's hiring a CISO, and they went out and Googled CISO job description and then copied and pasted that one. It's like, really? Maybe you want to kind of look for a certain set of skills that will help drive your business forward. I don't know.
Probably be a little more successful.
Well, that's the other challenge. That's the other challenge in recruiting. You have HR recruiters or HR representatives that are using traditional approaches for looking for cybersecurity talent, and they don't have the same motivations when you're looking for a new role, especially if they're more experienced. They're looking for the passion, the challenge, and less about the dollars. And you have these individuals that are focused on trying to weed out those just looking for the dollars, but they don't know how to hone in on that passion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now what would you say? So it seems to me, I could take a guess at it, but I'd rather ask you, Kristoff, what's your passion? What gets you what's so passionate about security for you?
I love helping people. I find myself in between the security engineers. I have a passion for the security field, but I also like helping the business, helping people do things more securely. I found in my first role as a help desk individual that individuals were doing things that left them exposed to common tactics that criminals would use. And just by sharing tips here and there, I saw the impact that it had on their lives. And seeing that impact just made me want to continue doing that.
That's cool. And what do you do? What do you do for your day job? What can you share about what you do kind of in your free time? For my day job, right now I am a cybersecurity risk consultant. So we're helping government agencies that are looking to conduct a digital transformation, so moving from traditional systems to cloud systems, and in that ensuring that they are taking cyber risks into consideration, they're taking advantages of what cloud has to offer, as well as ensuring that security and risk is taken into consideration all along the way. Okay. And you're out in the Washington, D.C. area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I may not. It's still early. Could be out there end of October.
Oh, what are you doing?
I got asked if we could potentially speak for some school board.
It's not
business professional.
It's not his school, is it?
No. Okay. It's like a national association.
All right.
So if that happens, we'll have to try and meet up.
Yeah. Yeah, because at this point,
yeah, definitely.
At this point, our relationship is all electronic. It's funny how you find people, or people find you on Twitter or LinkedIn,
right?
And then you just start, right? And you start this kind of relationship, and it's like, I've never even met this person before.
So let me ask you this, Chris, because it's weird to me. Do you have people coming up to you and like they'll introduce themselves and be like, "This is so weird. I listen to you all the time," and like, thanks.
Do you get that?
Yeah, I had that at a couple of conferences. I love to go to the local B-Sides conferences, whether trying to speak there or volunteer there or just go there to enjoy the topics that are put on. And I'll introduce myself and they go, "Oh, I know you." And you're like, I listened to your podcast, or I saw your presentation at this B-Sides. And that just makes me happy to see that I've possibly had a positive impact on someone's journey.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's I don't know. You're right. It's amazing, and it is very humbling, but it's still so weird to me.
Well, I'm
not used to this.
Well, we share a lot of the same passion. So when you said that you're passionate about helping people, both Brad and I mean, we're sitting in the studio looking at each other. We looked at each other like, "Yep, that's our passion too." You know, so you have, and there's enough room for all of us in this industry, right? You've got you helping people break into the information security field. We do some of that here from a different sort of angle, but then we try to make plain English, easy to understand security things.
Right.
Right. You won't hear a lot of technical jargon, but at the end of the day, it's all about helping people.
Right.
So that's cool.
Definitely. And I like to help people both in their personal lives as well as their professional lives. So that's another reason that the podcast started, is between Renee and myself, we would get asked, like, what do we do? What can we do? And because we're getting so many of the same questions over and over, we thought, how could we scale ourselves? And podcast is a perfect way to do so.
That's cool. So share a little bit about your journey. How did you get into this industry?
Well, I started one of the more traditional ways. I started in IT. My first role was a Sony-style backstage engineer. I helped prep computers that you would buy from the Sony-style store and ensure that when you walked out the door, you knew how to work it. It was all set up. It was all secure, rather than you going home and trying to figure it out yourself. We were the services in the store to help with that. Then I moved up to help desk for a regional bank, then leading their team, doing some physical security along the way, helping a regional medical or a national medical provider, and then just moving up, keep helping, keep growing, being that bridge between business and security. And that's how I landed myself here today.
That's
cool. It's funny that how much kind of similar that approach was. Evan came in from a networking background. I came in from IT ops and working the way up on that. You just kind of stumble into it and then look back and you're like, oh no, I've been doing this a long time.
Right. Well, and I think once you get into the industry, there's so much opportunity on where you can go, what branches you want to get into, because security is such a broad topic. It's such a broad discipline.
Yeah.
But, there's such a huge need for what Kristoff and Renee do in their podcast, because the hardest part, I think, is just getting in.
It's daunting. Yeah. I really like the approach that you guys are taking with that and helping people to get over that kind of like, again, the big barrier, right? Like it's tough.
Yeah. Well, you and I have been.
Yeah. One of our recent guests was a military veteran, and he talked about how his career as an intelligence officer helped prepare him. But there's a lot of things that, for example, our military does that's very similar to what we do in information security, whether it's IR or it's planning, it's building out. And there's so many transitional skills that we can take from this workforce that's transitioning out from active service, and we can engage them in service in the information security community next.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. We've hired a couple of people transitioning out of the military, and there are challenges. There's unique challenges in dealing with the way things were done in the military to the way things are done in the private sector. You know, I know one person on our technical services team couldn't believe that, well, you wrote this thing in policy. How could you not be doing this? And he just couldn't get over the fact that people weren't following policy. It's like, well, private sector, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So, breaking into information security or cybersecurity, and then now you're teaching. How? Tell me about your class. Tell me, how many nights a week are you teaching nights? I assume.
No, it's online. So I did my bachelor's and my master's online, and I figured this would be a good way to help give back to the community as well. And it was ultimately one of the reasons that led me to go do my master's, is so that I would have the capability to teach. But it's online through discussion boards, through conversations with the students. We have prep material and a course laid out for them. But my goal is also to bring in current relevant situations that are happening and spark that train of thought as to what's happening and how they could take the material that we have prepared for them and relate it to what's happening today. My goal is so that once they do leave school, they have more of a functional knowledge of what's happening than just a theoretical knowledge.
Okay. Smart. I like that.
Did you have to create the material, or did you have like a framework already that you just were able to, refine?
Yes, there's definitely a framework that's there already, and being my first class, I'm going to stick with the framework. But I think as things go on, then we can go in and add my own touch to it.
That's cool. So, you mentioned what it was about. Like, I guess, can you go into a little more detail on what exactly is covered? Is this kind of I don't want to, like a 101, like a entry level? Where's the difficulty?
The prerequisites?
Yeah, it's definitely an intro level class, and it goes into the different cyber threats, the different motivations for cyber threat actors, as well as the different technologies that are involved. It gets the students thinking about the security process from start to finish, including IR along the way, and just getting them a good solid foundation of what they're should be preparing for with the rest of their studies.
Okay, that's cool. I think that's and that's interesting because it goes right in line with your podcast and everything else you're working on of getting people going in the industry. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we
Sometimes the stars do align like that.
Well, so where can people find you? We talked about the Breaking Into Cybersecurity podcast. You're also on Twitter. Where can people find you there?
At Chris_Foulon, Foulon, on Twitter as well as on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Yeah.
I still can't get over how much you post.
Well, he uses Buffer. He told us the story. I know. He told us the trick.
I need to do that. I haven't gotten any better.
Yeah. I love that trick too.
It's all about scaling yourself, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I follow you and love the content you post. I think there's never 100%, where you see things the same way other people do 100%. Right. And you don't ever want that, right? You want the diverse perspectives and views on things. And, but I would say 80, 90%.
Yeah.
It's the same. And then where it's not, this is why Chris is a good person to follow. It challenges your thinking on those parts that you're,
Yeah, I would agree. And you don't want somebody who you're lockstep with all the time.
So follow Chris on Twitter. we should get to some news, Chris.
One of my commenters, sorry about that. One of my commenters yesterday mentioned how they could follow it if they weren't engaged in my class. So in line with your 100 Days of Truth, I'm posting one question a week
nice.
to engage the audience that are not in my class. So I already went ahead and posted the question for this week. So those following me can go in and do your own research for this week's question.
Ooh, I like that.
42?
The answer is either 42 or 7.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. No. So, all right. So one question a week. Do you post that question at a specific time of day when people can, make sure that they grab it? Because I'm assuming you probably use Buffer.
I'll try to do it Monday mornings.
Okay. So one question a week.
Yes.
Okay. So Monday mornings, I'll be watching for it.
Yeah, I'll have to go find it.
And I will not, I probably won't post an answer because,
Well, we don't want to ruin it for everyone else.
Yeah, because we basically, I mean, if you know Brad and I, we basically know everything. So, yeah, we don't want to ruin it. That's a joke. Well, should we get to some news?
Yeah,
because I know Chris has another probably 5 to 7 minutes or something before he's got to go and do real work. So.
Yeah, we can talk about some of these stories. I'm sure you may have heard of them. From Krebs, breach at Hy-Vee supermarket chain tied to the sale of 5 million stolen credit and debit cards. So
people still sell those?
Apparently. A lot of things out there. So is that
That's so 2015.
Right. Is that their restaurants and gas stations?
It still has some monetary value.
Yeah, I know. It was funny though when because my work on the Target breach back then. I mean, every credit and debit card breach was such huge news. Nowadays, one, I think due to breach fatigue, just in general, and two, people don't really suffer. They don't think they suffer because the bank just gives them their money back. And the market it hasn't gone away, but it's certainly tanked from what it was 4 years ago.
So the dumps are being sold from $17 to $35
per dump or per card.
It says, let's see, the card account records.
I think it's per dump.
Yeah, apparently stolen from that or sold for prices in $17 to $35. So get a text record with all your information. So
because it wasn't that long ago. Usually, I mean, I think kind of before chip and pin here in the U.S. anyway. I can remember when cards were selling for $17 to $35 a piece.
Yeah, now the money's in insurance and selling that.
Ransomware.
Yeah, ransomware. Yay. Shockingly, Capital One had their stuff stolen. This one was interesting. This was on Krebs as well. It was an insider that did it. So a Seattle woman was charged with stealing data for more than 100 million credit applications.
But let's clear that up. She was an individual that worked for Capital One cloud service provider and possibly worked on the project where they rolled out those services for Capital One, but no longer worked for that cloud provider anymore.
Correct. Yeah. And she's been arrested.
In jail.
Yeah.
Well,
very quickly.
And that news broke last month.
Yeah.
But, they're still digging in and they're still finding more and more because she did work for AWS, I think at the time. She worked for Amazon.
Yeah. It was Amazon.
So she had access to
a lot. And they're finding 30 other companies that she possibly also breached as well.
That's crazy. And why I brought it up was just how brazen she was posting on social media about it. There's screenshots in there that show exactly what she did.
Right.
Hey, you don't have to do the investigative work. I'm going to tell you how I did it.
Well, and she isn't part of her defense, I think, mental. Which isn't surprising. I mean, truly, if you follow her story, because she used to be a man, right? And you follow the story and some of the things that she posted online, and she wasn't all there.
No, that'd be interesting to follow.
So how would you prevent a breach like that?
Probably better logging. Why did somebody download a 16 gig MySQL database?
Right. Do you think we would have? Do you think we would have identified this, because this was an inside job? Do you think background checks? I don't think would have identified.
Probably not. No.
Maybe because there wasn't a criminal record there. I don't think
no.
so.
I think you're really looking for more detection and quicker detection on this. So, that unusual behavior. Did this person have a reason to be accessing these things and, downloading that much data?
Yeah.
There was.
Well, and this makes a case for
and
ongoing.
There's some privilege escalation as well.
Right. Yeah. So the activities might have tipped you off that, something weird was going on. But this is also a case for ongoing employee monitoring. And I know employees don't like that, because they think they have privacy. Oops, sorry, just hit the button. Because they think they have privacy in the office, but you don't have privacy in the at least how it pertains to a company's information.
Right.
But you'd have to cover it with a privacy policy. You'd have to go through legal counsel, and in different jurisdictions treat it differently. But, ongoing employee monitoring, certainly for privilege level accounts.
Right. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. Yep. I did have the Texas ransomware in there. That was
what? There was Texas ransomware?
The coordinated effort. I will say that I forgot which county it was. There was one, was it like Lubbock County? They actually caught it pretty quickly. I was impressed with that one.
But the interesting part of that Texas ransomware is they went through a managed service provider that allowed them to pivot to 22 or 23 different clients all at the same time.
Did they name the managed service provider? Has that been publicized?
No.
Yeah. You would think it will be eventually.
We've worked on, we know. A lot of MSPs don't have. We could mention some names. We had one where they put in a new firewall and left it any enabled, and they got.
Hey, but network traffic was flowing, wasn't it, for a while?
Anyway.
Well, it's like the Cloud Hoppers operation that happened over the past couple of years, where you had a state actor targeting MSPs and MSSPs for that reason. Is that if they breach this supply chain provider for these big companies or these countries, they could get access via that way rather than targeting them directly.
Oh yeah, well it's kind of what we've been saying, right?
It's the best bang for the buck,
right? They're going to target the highest value, and if I can breach one company and have access to everyone else, why would I try and individually breach? In this case, the 22 cities and counties. Right. Just hit one and get in.
And I think NIST, MITRE, and somebody else is working on information security standards for MSPs.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't see that.
Well, it's not really publicized, but I was talking to one of the MSPs here that has 35,000 customers, and they struggle with, how do you maintain the operations, keep margins at a point where you can still make a profit, and secure it at the same time. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
So anyway, and one of the things you said, Kristoff, was, I think we need to raise awareness and, like you said, provide solutions. This is how you protect yourself against this.
Yeah.
Did Kristoff have to leave?
Yeah, and for example, with my organization, one of the things that we're doing with the federal client that we're working on is we're helping them to improve their overall maturity prior to them possibly considering going to a managed service provider, is because if you're not mature enough to do it yourselves, how can you even monitor a service provider doing it? And if you don't know what to monitor or what sort of expectations to set, you're just walking into a situation blind.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of companies go to an MSP because they feel like they can just hand it off and
Right.
not have to worry about it anymore. But no, you still have responsibilities. You still have to have the oversight.
Yeah, we talked to one MSP that had an incident and their insurance got involved, and that stops everything. But we were asking them and if they had segmentation between their clients. Nope, everything's flat.
Well, a lot of them are using the same admin,
Right.
super admin across
all of them,
all of their clients.
So it's a lot more common to see that, I think, than people want to know about.
When I've seen one, we have one customer who uses one of our products for vendor risk management, for third-party risk management, and sent a questionnaire through the tool to their MSP, and their MSP refused to answer the questions.
Right.
Sorry, what?
Right.
I mean, time to look for another MSP.
Yeah. It's nuts. So next one, I don't know if you saw this, the FRSecure magazine. The headline is very, I don't know. I think it's misleading.
It's
it's
clickbait.
Clickbait. Thank you. City of London hit by 1 million cyber attacks per month. And when you actually dig into it, from the way they have it, it's like April 2018 to March of 2019, they suffered 7.2 million attacks. Well, 6.9 were spam. I mean, I think that's
or a pink sweep or something like that.
Yeah. And then the second highest was spoof mail, which is phishing attempts. So 244,000. They did say there were 17,000 quote unquote top malware. Now, what does that actually mean? I don't know. I mean, that's still a lot of there, but to say we have 1 million.
Well, define attack. Because
right?
everybody in our industry still struggle, not everybody, but we still struggle in this industry with just common vernacular, common definitions of words.
Mm-hmm.
So attack versus event versus incident versus,
right. These are not attacks.
Breach.
These are, yeah.
Well, it depends on how you define attack, right? If you're defining an attack by an attempted something, well, fine. I would call it an event, but it's headlines like this that do get clicks.
Yeah, and then don't think it helps.
Right.
Anyway, that one just.
Yeah, I mean, if it raises awareness, it helps, but you don't want to sell the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And kind of like that 60 Minutes commercial that airing last night, they talked about the ransomware in Texas, and they talked about all the other cities that got affected by it, but they didn't really share at least some common tips and tricks that small, medium-sized businesses or even small municipalities can use to help protect themselves for the future.
Yeah.
Right. Like backing up data and protecting it.
Right.
Which we've been preaching since the 80s.
It hasn't changed.
It's still the same thing.
Backing up offline.
Yep.
Not on premise, not keeping it connected, because one of the cities had backups, but they were still on the same network and still connected live.
Well, right, and that's always been part of it too. It's backing it up and then protecting those backup files.
Yeah.
Whether it be, we used to be physical, right? We'd back up to tape, and then you have to store it, 5, 10, 15 miles away, so that if a disaster hit that physical location, you'd still be able to go and get your backups and recover. Now that most of the backups are done online, it just takes a different sort of protection shift, right? You have to have them air gapped, offline, maybe even go back to physical backups. They're slow, but they work.
We'd gone to a hybrid approach where I was at, right? Backup to disk local, replicate to disk at a DR site, and then once a week our fools went to tape and offsite.
Right.
Just because of the value of that data.
Yeah,
it sucked, but
it's a simple, simple, effective backup strategy.
That's why I don't think tapes will ever fully go away. There's always going to be a need for them.
Well, and being an old school guy like I am, and just generally old and in general, I like tape backups. Yeah, they've worked. They were proven. Slow, but they worked.
As long as you test them, then they work.
Yeah, very true.
And that reminds me of the same MSP that I was just thinking about, who they have a service. It's backup as a service or whatever. It's just another thing that they sell people. And when we do an assessment of their clients, that's what we ask. Do you test restores?
Right.
Can you do a bare metal restore? Can you recover? And the MSP doesn't do that for them. No. They said, well, we can do that for an additional charge, but we don't do that as standard practice. For 35,000 clients, are you kidding me?
Wow. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from that MSP.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention the name. I'll mention the name some other day.
So the other one, this one was just a facepalm. The Ukrainian nuke plant workers that tried to mine cryptocurrency. So they took a supercomputer, which was air gapped, and hooked it up to the internet to mine cryptocurrency. Wow. So they've been arrested.
There's an incident in Russia last year that did something similar. They were using their supercomputer to mine cryptocurrency as well.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually, so I found this on FRSecure magazine as well, and it does link to that story about the Russian nuclear center being arrested for doing Bitcoin mining. But
on a nuclear power plant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
So this was interesting. I think those employees are going to probably not see the light of day anytime soon, because they're saying they unwittingly disclosed information on physical security measures in place at the nuclear facility, which is a state secret. The state typically does not like when you do that.
Well, I mean, the Ukrainians, I think, number one adversary on the geopolitical scale is Russia, right? Russia was already there anyway, so.
Well, they definitely are now. But if it was air gapped, there was at least the theory. But yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. Last one I had was. Go ahead.
I was going to say, did you see the story of NASA where one of their either contractors or employees put in an IoT device because they wanted to access their things remotely, and it was online for over 8 months?
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Oh boy,
I
did see the hack.
JPL.
There was the NASA hack. The astronaut hacked from space. Did you see that one?
No.
Oh yeah. So she hacked her spouse's bank account from space. So now you're thinking how to approach it. Which country's laws do they need to approach to tackle the situation?
I mean, that's epic. What hacker wouldn't love to hack something from space?
That's crazy. No, I hadn't seen that. I'm telling you, these IR, you lose track of so much. You
lose track of reality.
I feel like I'm so far behind. Last one I had was on ZDNet. Medical device cybersecurity will be rubbish for 20 more years. Mm-hmm. And that sounds clickbaity, but having seen what we've seen, I don't disagree.
Do you think so? I think this will be one part of information security where, there'll be a direct correlation to death. And whenever somebody dies, the government wakes up.
I think the problem you're going to have is they're still working on standards. And I have family that's in the healthcare industry, and they don't replace things unless it breaks, and they have to, right? So you're going to have a lot of legacy stuff out there for a long time.
You have the same thing in ICS environments as well, because a X-ray machine is $20,000-$50,000. You're not going to replace it just because it can't connect to Windows 10. It works fine on Windows XP, so they'll keep it running.
Yeah.
Well, and what we do with healthcare or entities is where you can't patch and you can't, mitigate some of these vulnerabilities, isolate. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's mitigating controls you can put in place to make it better. It's funny. On our board of directors, the Security Studio board of directors is Pat Joyce, who's the CISO at Medtronic. Mm. I should have him. He probably won't because, politics, but it'd be cool to get his take. I think I have lunch with him on Friday. I'll see if he'll come.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was interesting in the article is that again, it comes back to the basics. So they did a trial run with 3 hospitals over 3 months to find what was out there. And they found equipment with default credentials, default configs sitting in a DMZ, right? So there's a lot of things that can be done, but I think that built-in security into the devices themselves is going to be a while because there's a lot of legacy stuff out there.
Well, people will die.
And then they also rely on their vendors to provide support, and the vendors will go, well, if you don't leave my default credentials in there, I can't service you, and therefore I can't help you, so it will be considered out of warranty. And so they take that risk, or they leave that default cred there so that they get it serviced by their vendor.
That's true.
That's a good point.
Well, the whole healthcare industry is such a mess. I mean, we work, one of the large healthcare systems here in Minneapolis, very large. They only make 1% to 3% profit. So they don't have a lot of money to tackle some of these issues.
Right. Yeah.
And so if you're not going to get vendor support, and, to Kristoff's point, replacing machines is not an option. They can't afford it, even if they wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
That's a big issue. We should do a whole show just on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. All right. Well, hey, Kristoff, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Thanks for having me again.
I love his perspective.
Yeah.
We'd have to have him on again.
Yep, agreed. So,
happy anytime.
Yeah, we would definitely have you on again. So thank you, Evan. Special thank you to all of our listeners. It's crazy to watch the show growing every week. Just more and more people every time.
Yeah.
Love the feedback. So you can reach us on the show. You can email us at unsecurity@protonmail.com, or you can get us on Twitter. Evan is at Evan Francine. I'm at Brad Nye. And apparently Evan has already got a great show planned for next week.
I do have a really good show planned for next week. And once again, too, for Kristoff, because I don't normally tout following as much as I do, but Chris does have a really good perspective. So again, at Twitter, at CHRIS_FOULON. Follow him too.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks. Good show.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the UNSECURITY podcast. We value our listeners and would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback by emailing us at unsecurity@protonmail.com. That's UNSECURITY@PROTONMAIL.com. Be sure to tune in next week to hear the latest insights from Brad and Evan.